When you talk to Vince, you must converse, never confront. You will not win any confrontation. No matter how good a wordsmith you are, no matter how intimidating you think you may be, no matter how valuable you think you are to the company, it don't matter.
Welcome to Sportskeeda Wrestling, the legendary, good old JR, Jim Ross. Jim, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing, Kevin?
You have quite the little venture here. Studio sessions coming to ad-free shows. This is a treasure trove of audio that you produced in the 90s. Very unique piece of audio because this predates kind of like, I don't want to say shoot interviews and social media, but you had several big name wrestlers at a very unique time coming on this radio show that you did out of Atlanta, revealing some things sort of in character or not of character. You mentioned working with Vince McMahon on that. And anytime anyone brings up Vince McMahon, obviously the people are going to pay attention. He's the Spielberg of wrestling. He's at the tippy top of the business. And you had a very close working relationship for a very, very long time with him. What was it like working with him at this time? Because this is WCW starting to ramp up. They're not there just yet. They haven't gotten Hulk Hogan hasn't signed over with him, which a lot of people thought was a real shot to the chest of Stanford and WWE at the time. But what was it like working with him at that time? Because there was a different time. There was a real transitional phase. He's trying to build new stars, and you're involved in there. It seems like a challenging time for WWE. And then you're also having him give you things and say, like, yes, I'll give you this star in this unique, different way. What was that like for you?
Very positive, exciting. Yeah, and the thing about WCW, I love living in Atlanta. I'm not going to get on here and try to report that living in Stanford was better than living in Atlanta. Nothing else. Traffic and weather together kills you in Stanford. But he was great. Anybody I wanted, really, I got. And what I'd normally do is make it his idea, which I learned that early on. I said, who do you want to bring on the radio show? So I got this guy, so he'd book it. I said, okay, I'll take this one and this one. Is that okay? I have this other go next week. But we always had a reason for having them on: an event, a pay-per-view, a TV show, whatever. Tune in. So he was great in that regard. So, and we even tried a radio version, and I think it was Radio WWF or something at the time.
That was my next question. I was going to say it kind of parlayed into that kind.
Yeah. Well, it was, again, this is before podcasts, streaming, things you and I are doing now. But he liked the audio component. When we had our first meeting that lasted about 3 hours outside the back door of the Augusta, Georgia Civic Center.
What a location.
Yeah, it's home of the Masters. So I talked with him and give him several ideas that I thought were viable and new and innovative. And he loved it. He's so powerful and has cast such a long shadow that he did. A lot of people are leery of pitching things.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little intimidating. When you're talking to the most powerful man in your world professionally, it can make you pucker a little bit occasionally.
I would assume, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I used to tell all the guys, new people that we hired in administration or whatever. Tell me about Vince. What are the do's and the don'ts? Our talent. I said, he said, I want to talk to Vince today. I said, so all those type deals. I said, here's your advice. You take it or you don't. When you talk to Vince, you must converse, never confront. You will not win any confrontation. No matter how good a wordsmith you are, no matter how intimidating you think you may be, no matter how valuable you think you are to the company, it don't matter. We do work in fiction. He can create any storyline he wants. He can make you or break you, but you need to stay in a positive light. And that's not a sage advice. It's accurate, but it really applies to any damn job you got.
Absolutely.
Why would you want to become adversarial with your decision maker?
No.
Then you're not dumb. You're not smart enough to work for that company.
The coach will put someone else to do the play. He'll put somebody else in if he thinks he can get a different play.
Absolutely. So, but Vince was, I had the issues about Vince and I stem from different philosophies about wrestling, which doesn't mean I was totally wrong or he was totally right. It just means we had a different opinion. I wanted to run the ball. He wanted to throw the ball, but we both loved the game. And that's how I looked at it. So if I lose an argument, I'm not going to die on that hill. I'm going to get my ass up and go leave his office and thank you for his time and go back to work. But that's how we built our relationship.
What was you mentioned conversation? I was going to ask something else, but it's just a unique relationship and such a profound guy. And you did a lot of very historic work with him, the Attitude Era, the rise of Raw as a brand, your talent relations work. Is there any specific conversation maybe that was important, or maybe in retrospect isn't a very seismic conversation that was just memorable to you? What you mentioned conversing with him, it means something to talk with him. Do you have any memorable conversations with him that you fondly remember at all?
Oh, tons of them. Him trying to talk me out of hiring Mick Foley. He could have just said, no, JR, I'm not. He could have said, he said this to me on a few topics. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's just table it. Okay. Which gave me hope because by tabling it doesn't mean I can't bring it back up later on.
No, it's not no.
That's right. It wasn't a no. It's just, let's table it.
Yeah.
I came through Gorilla one night after a show, a Raw, and it was a wild night, the 2 hours of train wreck and everything out of control and huge crowd, signs everywhere and all that. And I've had these conversations a lot. You always dreaded going back through Gorilla when the show was over because you never knew what you were going to get. He's like my dad. My dad was kind of short on compliments. So being raised by my father as I was, totally and perfectly prepared me to work for Vince. Same way. He's the boss. He's got to prove it every now and then. Here's what we're doing. But I walked back through Gorilla position one time. He says, God damn, I wish I could clone your ass. Well, I wish you could too.
Maybe he's got one. Maybe he has one somewhere.
Yeah.
In Titan Tower, there's a clone of you, like in a glass case, and he's just waiting for the chance to.
I just think that was probably the nicest thing you ever said to me.
That's so sweet. It is a really sweet thing to say. It's a weird thing to say about somebody, but it's also a very sweet thing because it shows the level of your work and what you were doing for him at the time.
Yeah, he appreciated it. And I got to the level where I didn't have to say, you think he met Brock Lesnar before I signed him? No. John Cena. He didn't want me to hire Randy Orton, but I did. Because I said, Vince, did you get sent to military school? Did you get a second chance? This kid deserves a second chance. He's got too much upside potential for us to relegate him to some other company.
Was there just an issue with Randy and just are we getting too much trouble if we're getting too much baggage if we bring him in at this time?
I think it was because of his dishonorable discharge from the Marines.
Yeah.
And without knowing the story, why it happened. There's always two sides to every story. It's kind of what I relayed. And of course, me steering that course and lengthened Randy's career. And he's been a good investment for that company.
Incredible investment, probably, and regarded as outside of WWE as one of the best performers in the world at the moment. And
without a doubt.
In his 40s, he's doing.
Yeah, and he's made a lot of money, Kevin.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah, John Cena. He never heard of John Cena in his life.
Oh.
John was out in Southern California, working part-time at several jobs, moving company, truck driver, just a litany of things, while he was training with Rick Bassman at UPW there in Southern California. I was out there actually scouting somebody else. I remember who it was now, but John looked like Sting, prototype, the blonde, flat top haircut.
Absolutely. I've seen the pictures. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had our little sit down I had a lot of sit downs with these guys. To me, I could tell you, at least in my version, I didn't need to see somebody work an hour match. I didn't need to see them work 4 or 5 times. I could see them work a few times, go through some transitions from offense to defense and how you transition, how do you sell, how do you come back, the basic fundamental processes, and feel comfortable in making a somewhat educated decision. Now, the more you saw them, I get that, you're going to have a better feel, but you don't need to scout them for a year.
Mm-mm.
And so then we have our sit down and we get to know each other. Mm-hmm. And I find out that he's a former All-American, small college All-American center. I find out that his strength coach is now the strength coach at Oklahoma University. I find out that he knew as much wrestling trivia as anybody that I'd ever been around. So he's a student of the game in the true sense of the word. Mm-hmm. I remember taking the red eye home that night from LAX to New York City. And I was so excited meeting this guy that I went to the office first, and I caught Vince there after his workout. And I was still in my wrinkled, sleepy clothes. And he says, what the hell, where you been? I said, well, I was in LA last night. What for? And I told him. Mm-hmm. Have you seen anybody you liked? I said, as a matter of fact, I really did. I think I saw a kid that'll headline WrestleMania in 5 years or less. He said, I think you need to go home and take a shower. You're delusional. But I was high on John Cena.
Yeah.
And guess what?
It turned out.
It turned out.
It turned out.
We've never had a harder working guy in this company, at least under my watch. And maybe, I don't know if anybody I've ever known that had as much, that did as many, worked as hard as John. You know, he's got this insane record of Make-A-Wish sessions. And to me, that's real. When you're meeting a terminally ill child. And the sad part is that, you know, these children know they're dying. Mm-hmm. And he made them feel special. And he did it more than anybody on earth. He's got more Make-A-Wish, granted more Make-A-Wishes than anybody else alive. And I think that counts for something.
Absolutely. Some people, that means more than winning world titles and all those.
Absolutely. Yeah. He hadn't done it yet, Kevin, but you could tell where his soul was.
Yeah. You knew what you were investing in. You knew what.
Yeah. And when I talked to the strength coach, he said, tell me about John Cena. Well, hell, I had to shut him up. He was effusive. First guy in the gym, last guy to leave, captain of the team, great motivator, hardest worker on the team, blah, blah, blah. At a very sizzly position, center. Mm. He wasn't like he's the tailback or the quarterback. He wasn't Tom Brady or somebody.
He's in the thick of it.
Yeah, man. Down in the trenches. So, but Vince was, again, if you had Vince, like you telling him what time it was, not how to make the watch. He liked respect. He liked you to have your thoughts collected and have a beginning, a middle, and an end on your presentation, and understand he's managing every facet of that entire company. So he don't have time to bullshit. Excuse my language.